wait a minute, you were egregiously treated. You were terrified. You were taken advantage of. You were a dependent child, innocent, and you were manipulated and charged with doing things that were just inappropriate and for your psyche, for your sense of safety and trust. So forgiveness is a tricky path at best. So I'm going to ask you to elaborate more. I've gotten to the point, and you can absolutely knock this down, Teresa, but I've gotten to the point where I say, if you can move to your own freedom, to where you're released enough that if that person were truly repentant and able to heal you by their repentance, then you would be able to shift into an attitude of forgiveness. Perhaps that's the state to be in, that you would be able to shift into that if that other person were willing to honestly say to you, I'm so sorry, terrifyingly chagrined, whatever they need to say to say they were wrong, but that to not carry the burden of having to forgive someone before you walk into your own freedom to be enraged and angry and standing up for yourself, that this shouldn't have happened. Well, I've gone on and on because you see what I'm trying to do is what do you mean by forgiveness, and when does I should forgive become a trap, and when does forgiveness become what you actually shift into as a form of freedom to be back to yourself?
Oh, well, there's a key word there. It's guilt, because you feel guilty for everything. So you feel guilty because you must have done something to, invite this person to invade you. You feel guilty because you can't stop it. You feel guilty because you're affecting other people's lives. You feel guilty because you can't get on that road to recovery everyone's telling you should be on. And then you feel guilty because you're told you should forgive and you can't. So, there's all these, It's all about guilt. It's a path of realizing that there isn't a guilt. The state of mind I got to wasn't somebody telling me I should forgive. They could have told me that a million times, 6 months previously, and I would never have been able to forgive. I would never even, but I would have felt guilty about the fact that they may have mentioned to me, if they would have said to me, well, if you don't forgive, you're never going to move on. And as you just, said quite nicely there, I was sat and thought, well, what's wrong with me? I can't forgive. These people are telling me other people do this. Why can't I? But there's no button you can push. There isn't something that someone can say to you that would trigger that reaction. Forgiveness is not something that is written down or even, printed in a book or something that someone says to you. It's about really knowing it inside of yourself. You don't have to feel guilty anymore because you can put it down. That's what I'm trying to sort of get to here. It's not about, it's about that. It's about putting it down, being able to put it down and nobody having to tell you that you have to. Because all the points, until you reach that, all the points that are trigger points, are points that make you feel wrong because you're doing something wrong. Once again, you can't do. Once again, you are doing something. So, it's all about that. It's about you realizing that nobody has to tell you. Nobody has to write this down. You actually believe it. That it's inside of you. You feel this feeling, and you can put it down. That's what it's about. It's in you. No one can put it there. You have to go there on your own. But we can all do that. There's no one out there listening to me right now that can't do that. The only difference is a time frame, but you don't have to run. 1 foot in front of the other. It becomes a stride, then it becomes a mile. Walk towards a mountain, suddenly it's a hill. There is no set point or structure in your recovery. It's when you can do it, and you will know that. That will come to you at that point in time. You can't rush it. No one can force it on you, but it's out there. But you have to believe. You have to believe you can, because that's the first step.
That's interesting. Where does rage fit into that? Where does rage and standing up for yourself and the indignation of being violated and the appall that a human being would have corrupted the inside of you that way, where does rage fit, or hatred, or those sorts of emotions?
Wow, I felt all of those, rage, hate, I remember one particular day, I used to work in an accounts department, and I used to teach aerobics and weights part-time. My stepfather had took it into his mind to turn up at my classes to watch me from the balcony. Intimidation, just to remind me he was there. And I left that class one day, and I was driving home, and my mobile rang. Now, I need to explain here, I was self-employed, and a lot of the numbers that rang me were withheld, so I had to answer the phone. So I had no way knowing whether it was him or somebody else, which he was aware of. And so if I changed the number, he would get the number because I also worked part-time in the office. So there was no sort of getting away from as that sort of point in time. The number was a number. If I changed it, he would find it. He rang me that day to say if I didn't go, it was a Sunday morning, and he'd gone back to the office, and he rang me from there and said if I didn't come to the office within sort of the next half an hour, that he was going to shoot himself, and then I would have to explain to my mother his death. His blood would be on my hands.
Oh my goodness.
Could I live with that? And he sort of really sort of got me at a point there. My mum was my life, my world. She had such a awful life with my real father, which again everything's within the book there. And all this that was going on, I was trying to protect her. So, driving home and I'm refusing to go to see him in the office, was I protecting her? No. And what I had been doing for the last nearly 3.5 years would be for nothing because he